Later, you might want to punch me. Right now, you probably still really appreciate it.
The thing is like when I talk to Christine about you, I see it from a guy's point of view. I really do. I get where you're coming from in a lot of ways.
Sister Wives has officially entered its no-filter era, and this showdown is nothing like we've seen before. Imagine your ex-husband casually admitting that your new husband probably wants to punch him in the face. Not metaphorically, not emotionally, physically. That's the reality Cody Brown just dropped into our laps, and it instantly changed the tone of the entire Sister Wives narrative. Because when someone finally says the quiet part out loud, it forces everyone to confront just how bad things really were. Welcome back to the chaos. Because today, we're stepping straight into one of the most uncomfortable, revealing admissions Cody Brown has ever made, one that says far more about his past with Christine than he probably intended. Stay with me, because what unfolds from this moment exposes years of denial, emotional damage, and consequences finally coming due. And before we dive all the way in, if this is your first time here, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. We don't just recap drama here, we break it down, piece by piece, emotion by emotion. And I want to know where you stand. As you listen, ask yourself, are you Team Cody or Team Christine? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this story is anything but black and white. Now let's talk about the confession that sent fans spiraling. In a recent interview that immediately set the Sister Wives fandom on fire, Cody Brown admitted something no one expected him to say out loud. He acknowledged that Christine's new husband, David Woolley, probably wants to punch him. Let that sink in for a second. This is a man who has spent years deflecting blame, minimizing Christine's pain, and rewriting history, and suddenly, he's admitting that another man might want to hit him over how he treated her. That alone is shocking. Cody is not known for self-reflection. He's known for defensiveness, justification, and carefully sidestepping accountability. So, for him to openly recognize that kind of hostility tells us just how far gone the situation really is. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't said lightly. It came from a place of looking back at a marriage that collapsed publicly and painfully, and realizing there are consequences when you emotionally devastate someone for years. And let's be honest, if you're the ex-husband who put a woman through neglect, humiliation, and emotional starvation on national television, her new husband probably isn't baking you cookies or sending you holiday cards. That resentment doesn't come out of nowhere. It's earned because while Cody was pulling away, Christine's life didn't stop. It transformed. David Woolley didn't just enter Christine's life. He changed it. He showed up in every way Cody didn't. He listens. He's present. He's affectionate. He chooses her openly, proudly, without conditions. He treats her like she matters. And when you place that next to years of emotional dismissal, favoritism, and neglect, the contrast is almost painful to watch. So yes, if you're David and you've watched the woman you love be minimized, ignored, and emotionally crushed for years, anger is a natural response. Protective instincts don't come from nowhere. They come from seeing harm done and wanting to make sure it never happens again. What's even more unsettling is how resigned Cody seems about it. There's almost an acceptance in his tone, like he understands that this anger is the natural outcome of his actions. As if physical resentment is just another item on the list of consequences he now has to live with. And that's not normal. That's not casual. That's the emotional bill finally coming due after years of neglect, favoritism, and abandonment. To really understand why this tension exists, we have to rewind. Christine Brown was Cody's third wife. She entered plural marriage with faith, hope, and a genuine belief that love and partnership could exist in that structure. And for years, she carried the emotional and logistical weight of the family. She raised 13 children, many of whom weren't biologically hers. She cooked, cared, organized, and held everything together while slowly being drained of affection herself. And what did she receive in return? Public rejection, emotional neglect, and the slow realization that she was watching her husband prioritize his fourth wife, Robin, while she was left begging for crumbs of attention. We all remember the moments, the nachos he couldn't even bring himself to eat, The trips he treated like a burden. The interviews where he openly said he wasn't attracted to her anymore, said straight to a camera that would broadcast it forever. That wasn't just painful. It was cruel. By the time Christine finally walked away in 2021, she wasn't leaving impulsively. She was done in her bones. And honestly, she earned that exit. No one deserves to feel like they're competing for basic love inside their own marriage. Then came David. And the difference is impossible to ignore. David looks at Christine like she is something precious. He reaches for her hand. He smiles when he's with her. He shows pride instead of embarrassment, affection instead of avoidance. Simple things that should have been normal all along, suddenly felt revolutionary after decades with Kody. So when Kody admits that David probably wants to punch him, what he's really admitting is that he knows he failed her, that he recognizes, maybe too late, that any man who truly loves Christine would feel anger over how she was treated. And that brings us to the man himself, because David, Woolley, isn't just Christine's new husband. He's become a symbol of everything she was denied. A grandfather, a retired entrepreneur, by all accounts, calm, grounded, and genuinely kind. The kind of man who doesn't need to compete for control because he leads with respect. And that contrast, that's what makes this entire situation so explosive, because when love is finally shown clearly, it exposes just how absent it was before. Christine's life didn't just change, it restarted. She met David in 2022. And by every account, the connection wasn't forced or cautious or slow burning in a let's see if this works way. It was immediate, easy, real. And that alone says so much about how starved Christine had been emotionally for years. Unlike her so-called spiritual marriage to Kody, this time she chose something grounded in reality. A real, legal marriage. In October 2023, in Utah, surrounded by family and friends who weren't tolerating her happiness, they were actively celebrating it. No tension, no competition, no hierarchy. Just love, witnessed, and supported. And when people ask, what makes David so different from Kody? Honestly, it might be easier to ask what isn't different. David shows up emotionally. He communicates without turning conversations into power struggles. He doesn't twist Christine's feelings into something she needs to apologize for. He doesn't gaslight her or make her question her sanity for wanting affection, attention, or reassurance. And perhaps most importantly, he isn't dividing himself between multiple wives, forcing Christine to fight for space in her own relationship. He chose her fully, and he proves that choice every single day. Fans have noticed it immediately. You can see it in Christine's photos, her videos, the way she talks now. Her smile isn't guarded anymore. It reaches her eyes. She laughs without hesitation. She speaks about feeling cherished and valued, words we never heard from her during her marriage to Kody, after watching her slowly dim herself for years just to survive. Seeing her finally bloom is emotional for longtime viewers. It feels like watching someone come back to life. And this is the part that really matters. David isn't a rebound. He's not a revenge relationship. He's not some symbolic middle finger aimed at Kody. This is a mature, healthy partnership between two adults who know who they are. David walked into this with his eyes wide open. He knew about the cameras, the scrutiny, the drama, the fractured family dynamics. And he chose Christine anyway, not despite her past, but because he saw her strength underneath it. So when people say David probably wants to punch Kody, it's not about aggression. It's about witnessing the aftermath of years of emotional damage. It's about watching the woman you love unpack trauma that never should have been inflicted in the first place. And it's about knowing the man responsible has offered very little real accountability. That kind of realization doesn't create violence. It creates fury on behalf of someone you care about deeply, but the tension between Kody and David goes far beyond. Christine. This is about the family fallout that's been building for years, and it's messy in ways Kody can no longer ignore. Christine and Kody share 6 children: Aspen, Mykelti, Peden, Gwendolyn, Isabel, and Truly. And most of them have made their feelings painfully clear. Their loyalty isn't with their father. Christine's daughters, especially, haven't stayed quiet. Gwendolyn has openly discussed the family dynamics on her own platform. Isabel has spoken about the deep hurt she felt when Kody refused to travel with her for a major spinal surgery. These aren't petty complaints. These are wounds that form when kids realize their parent consistently chose someone else's needs over theirs again and again. Now imagine being David and stepping into that reality, hearing these stories firsthand, meeting these kids, thoughtful, articulate, wounded, and realizing they were failed by the one person who was supposed to protect them. Imagine watching Christine still processing the emotional wreckage of her marriage while trying to heal and move forward. Of course, the protective instinct kicks in. It would be impossible not to feel it. What's especially telling is how completely Christine's children have embraced David. Mykelti has spoken positively about him. The grandkids adore him. Her daughters see their mother finally being treated with care and respect, and they're not just okay with it, they're relieved. Meanwhile, many of them have distant or strained relationships with Kody, some bordering on non-existent. The contrast is brutal. David entered this family and immediately led with respect, consistency, and genuine care. Kody, after decades, has somehow managed to alienate much of his own family through his choices and priorities. So, when Kody admits that said out loud, that David probably wants to punch him, what he's really acknowledging is something much deeper. He knows he's lost their respect. And once that's gone, especially with your children, it's almost impossible to earn back. Because once your kids see the truth, once they understand how their mother was treated, there's no undo budo. And you can't put that realization back in the bottle. And then there's Robyn. You cannot talk about the collapse of Kody's marriages without addressing the role Robyn Brown played, because she sits at the center of it all. When Robyn entered the family in 2010 as the fourth wife, the imbalance was obvious from the start to viewers, to the other wives, to anyone watching closely. Kody didn't just fall in love. He restructured his entire emotional world around her, while Christine, Janelle, and Mary were expected to share scraps of time and affection. Robyn received the bulk of everything: attention, emotional energy, physical presence. And during the pandemic, that favoritism exploded into something impossible to defend. Kody enforced rigid, often illogical rules on the other families. While bending over backwards to accommodate Robyn, he lived primarily at her house. Her children were prioritized. And at the same time, Christine's daughter needed major surgery, and Kody chose not to go. Christine has been careful with her words publicly when it comes to Robyn. But you don't have to say much when the reality is that obvious. Imagine being married and watching your husband give another woman everything you begged for: affection, time, loyalty, while you're still standing there, legally and spiritually tied to him. Watching him fall in love in real time while you're slowly being erased, that kind of pain doesn't just disappear, and it explains everything that came after. Now, David gets to do what Kody never could: give Christine the life and love she should have had all along. There's no rotation schedule, no competing households, no emotional absence disguised as obligation. David isn't rationing his presence or offering excuses for why he can't show up. He simply does, consistently, fully, without conditions. And yes, after everything Christine said she endured. That kind of reliability almost feels radical. So when Kody admits that David probably wants to punch him, it sounds less like a joke and more like a delayed moment of clarity. Because when you see someone step into your place and treat a woman with the care, attention, and respect you refuse to give, especially in front of the entire world, it forces an uncomfortable realization. From the outside, Kody's behavior didn't just look flawed. It looked cruel. And maybe, for the first time, he's seeing it through someone else's eyes. Meanwhile, Robyn ended up with exactly what she seemed to want: Kody all to herself. No sister wives, no sharing, no competition. But look at the wreckage left behind. The family structure collapsed. The other wives walked away. Kody's relationships with many of his children are strained at best and broken at worst. And now Robin is married to a man who has demonstrated very clearly that when his priorities shift, emotional neglect isn't a deal breaker for him. That's a heavy price for winning. So what happens next? Kody's admission opens up a lot of uncomfortable questions about the future. The most obvious one first. There will never be a warm, friendly bond between Kody and David. That possibility is gone. It didn't just fade out, it sank completely. And honestly, that might be the healthiest outcome. Christine doesn't need forced politeness or performative peace for the sake of cameras. She needs distance, space, and the freedom to continue healing without her past hovering in the background. The more complicated question is about Kody and his kids. Does this moment of self-awareness lead anywhere meaningful? Or is it just another fleeting acknowledgement with no follow-through? History suggests the latter. Kody has had opportunities to take accountability before and repeatedly avoided them. Repairing those relationships would require humility, consistency, and real change. And so far, those aren't qualities he's demonstrated for long. In contrast, Christine and David's future looks solid. They're building something rooted in mutual respect, emotional safety, and open communication. Christine has said more than once that she's never been happier, and this time, it doesn't feel like she's convincing herself. She's thriving in ways she never could while shrinking herself to fit into plural marriage dynamics that left her invisible. And of course, there's the question the network is probably already circling. What does this mean for future seasons of Sister Wives? Will David appear more on screen? Will there ever be a face-to-face moment between him and Kody? The potential for uncomfortable, high-stakes television is enormous. But beneath the spectacle, there's something more important happening. Real people navigating real pain, real accountability, and real healing. Christine's evolution is the heart of this story. Watching her move from a woman who felt unseen in her own marriage to someone who radiates confidence, peace, and joy is powerful. It's not just entertaining, it's validating. She didn't fail. She survived. And then she chose herself. Zooming out, this situation isn't just about one explosive comment or one broken marriage. It's about recognizing patterns and deciding not to repeat them. Kody's acknowledgement that David might want to punch him is notable because it cracks his usually impenetrable ego. For years, he framed himself as the victim, deflected blame, and avoided responsibility. Admitting that he hurt someone deeply enough to spark that kind of anger is a step, but a small one, because awareness without action means nothing if Kody truly wants growth. It won't come from sound bites. It will come from repairing relationships with his children, respecting boundaries, and confronting his own role in dismantling his family. Until then, moments like this will feel hollow for longtime viewers, though this moment lands differently. It feels like validation for Christine. We watched her suffer. We watched her beg for the bare minimum. We watched her finally walk away. And now seeing her love properly feels like the ending she always deserved. It's also a powerful reminder for anyone watching from a similar place. Christine spent over 25 years in that marriage. She raised 6 children. She was deeply embedded in a belief system that made leaving feel almost impossible. And still, she did it. She chose happiness. She chose peace. She chose herself. So yes, Cody Brown admitted that Christine's husband, David Woolley, probably wants to punch him. And after everything we've seen, can we really blame David? If anything, the fact that it remains a thought and not an action speaks to restraint, not rage. This story isn't over. The Sister Wives family implosion is still unfolding, and the emotional aftershocks are far from settled. And we'll be here breaking down every revelation, every uncomfortable moment, and every step toward healing. Now, I want to hear from you now. It's your turn to weigh in, because this story raises questions that don't have easy answers. Do you think Kody is finally showing real self-awareness? Or is this just another carefully worded comment meant to soften his image without changing his behavior? How do you think Christine's kids feel watching all of this play out? The admissions, the distance, the damage that still hasn't been repaired. And let's talk about the idea everyone's already thinking about. Would you watch an entire spin-off focused solely on Christine and David building their new life together? And be honest, do you think David genuinely wants to punch Kody? Or is Kody exaggerating to make himself seem more self-aware than he really is? If you enjoyed this deep emotional breakdown of the sister wives drama, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single update. This family has turned real life into a full-blown soap opera, and we're here to unpack every layer of it. Share this video with your sister wives obsessed friends, because this is the kind of tea everyone ends up talking about, whether they admit it or not. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep breaking down the chaos, the conflict, and the incredible transformations still unfolding in the sister wives universe. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember this: you deserve a partner who shows up for you the way David shows up for Christine, not the way Kody showed up for, well, anyone. See you soon.